You are listening to the Metal Command Podcast.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you, and today I'm here to talk about Judas Priest. That's right, one of the legendary bands that really helped shape heavy metal into what it is today. And the reason I'm here to talk about them is to talk about the new song Panic Attack, which is coming off of their upcoming album, coming out March 8th of 2024, entitled Invincible Shield. That's the name of the album that's coming out. So I'm going to talk about the song. I'm going to talk about where I think they might be going on this new album. I might speculate a little bit on how that album is going to sound. I'm going to talk about the album artwork, etc., etc. So with that being said, if you do like what you see and hear in this podcast, hit that little button to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. I'm curious to what all of you think about the new song. And I'm curious what you folks think, good or bad. I've been reading a lot of comments on social media. And, again, a lot of people are going to be like, well, why are they taking pre-orders so far in advance? Again, as I've spoken about on my podcast, when I talk about industry stuff that people, for whatever reason, get offended by, especially record labels. They don't like it when I talk about that stuff for whatever reason. It just takes longer for stuff to get manufactured, records to get pressed, et cetera, et cetera. So just due to increased demand, and a manufacturing capacity that has not really increased much. So with that being said, let's talk about the song. And I don't overanalyze anything. I don't sit here and dissect the song structure or anything crazy like that. It's a matter of, do I like it and do I not like it? And the answer is, I like it. I actually like it quite a bit. Now, here's the thing. Does this song offer anything new or groundbreaking that Judas Priest has not done before? The answer is no. When you listen to it, it is the classic Judas Priest sound with a great production, courtesy of Andy Sneap. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that collaboration here in a second. So it really doesn't offer anything new and groundbreaking, but it really doesn't have to. I have always been of the notion that if a band wants to keep their classic sound, they could still write great songs keeping that same sound. And, I'm going to reflect back on Firepower in a little bit here as well. But I really like the track. It's funny. I heard this and I thought I was crazy when I first heard this in this song itself. But I heard a little bit of Rush Tom Sawyer in it. There's some people that pointed it out on the Facebook page. But like when I heard the intro, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. But, I don't think that was intentional, but it does have a little bit of that vibe on the intro of the song, which I thought was interesting the more I listened to it. But I love the track. I think the track is really well written. It's well produced. It's well played. Rob Halford. Folks, Rob Halford is 72 years old. 72 years old. I think Rob Halford sounds great on this track. He really sounds outstanding. I know some people have complained that maybe he doesn't sound as good live as he used to, but the guy is 72 years old. And he sounds really, really good on this album. He sounds amazing on this album, or at least on this song, right? I don't want to say album because I haven't heard the whole album, but he sounds really good. So for me personally, it's got the classic Priest sound. It's a really well-written song. Is it anything crazy new or groundbreaking? No, but again, it's Judas Priest. It's got the classic Priest sound to it. I don't think it really needs any of that. I gave the song a 9 out of 10. I really, really like this track quite a bit. I took a couple days to listen to it because I know they put it out this past Friday. But I really wanted to let the track sink in. What do I think of it? I mean, it's well played. It's well produced. It's well written. So there really isn't much more to talk about when it comes to the song itself. Now, let's talk about the upcoming album, Invincible Shield, sorry. Where do I think, and I always ask these questions, where do I think this album is headed? What do I think it's going to sound like, and how do I think it might compare based on the song we just heard. Now, we've only heard a sample size. You've only heard one song. But usually I can get a good gauge on what a band is going for and what their upcoming album is going to sound like based on the song they just put out. So I have a couple things I'm going to say. First of all, I think that I'm going to give you two reasons for this. I think I think Invincible Shield is going to be a better album than Firepower. And I have two reasons for this. I'll dive into the first one. It's going to be very simple. I like this song, Panic Attack, better than most of the Firepower album. Not all of it, but most of it. Okay? Some of you may disagree with me. It's subjective. I get it. But I think it's going to be better than most of the Firepower album. And let me reflect back on the Firepower album itself, because that is going to then transition into reason number two as to why I think this new Priest album will be better than Firepower. Firepower to me was a great record. To me, it was the best album that they had put out since Painkiller. In all honesty, I really think it was. And let's backtrack a little bit on that. Painkiller was probably is my favorite Judas Priest album. But after that, if you look at the albums they were putting out, I liked the Jugulator. I didn't think it was as good as Painkiller, but I did like a lot of Jugulator. But Demolition was hit or miss on some of the songs. Angel of Retribution, I didn't really like the tracks on that very much at all. You had Nostradamus, which was not very good. And then you had Redeemer of Souls, which had some decent tracks on it. But it is definitely not, in my opinion, not a great record. And then, so Firepower comes out. Now, they end up collaborating with Andy Sneap on the Firepower album for the production and, all that stuff. And man, when that album came out, it was unbelievable. Because a lot of these older bands, they run into this rut where they decide they're going to produce stuff themselves. They don't care whether the album sounds good or not. I'm not saying all of them do that, but there are a number of them that do. Judas Priest said, you know what? It's like they said, you know what? We're going to get rid of this mediocrity and this stuff that we're doing. We're going to find a real producer, a guy that's going to make us sound awesome, like we should sound, as a legendary band like we are. And they did that with Andy Sneap. The album sounds amazing. I think I gave that album a 9 out of 10. And to be honest with you, that was the first Judas Priest album where I liked it top to bottom. Everything since Painkiller, I liked something off of. Maybe one song, maybe half the album, maybe 3/4 of the album. Like Jugulator, I liked 3/4 of the album. Demolition, I liked half the album. Every one of them had something good to offer. But from top to bottom, all of these records from Painkiller all the way up until Firepower really weren't albums that you listen all the way through and think it's outstanding. Firepower was the first album to me that did that. Okay, so this is going to go into reason number two for me into thinking why I think this new Judas Priest album will be better than Firepower. And it's the fact that it's the second album with Andy Sneap. They collaborated with Andy on Firepower. And then the thing is, when you go to do album number two, you're always going to make improvements. Meaning that this collaboration, anytime musicians or producers or whatnot get together and produce an album, write an album, record an album, when they get together for the first time, that first album is, if it's good, usually it's better the second time around, because then you go back and you think, okay, what could we have done better here? What would have worked better here? And you make improvements. It's the natural course of how things go. And in most cases with bands, when they find someone really good to collaborate with, right? Like Firewind, for example, found Dennis Ward. And he is somebody that they have been working with for a long time. You have bands that find certain people, and when they hit it out of the park, like Judas Priest did with Firepower, it is natural to assume that they are going to improve upon what they did the first time. And that's really where I'm going with this. This is part of the reason why I think Invincible Shield will be a better album than Firepower. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, and I have been wrong, but most of the time I'm not when I look at it from that perspective. So I think they are going to make a lot of improvements. I think Panic Attack may not be the best song on the album. And, again, it's hard to tell. We have one track, but my preliminary thoughts on this upcoming Priest album is that I think Invincible Shield will be better than Firepower based on the fact I like this song better than most of Firepower, and the fact that it's going to be album number 2 with Andy Sneap, and they are going to make a lot of improvements and probably have made a lot of improvements on the album itself. So I'm really excited. Folks, I'm really, really excited for this upcoming Judas Priest album. A lot of people, the biggest criticism I think is a lot of people are like, well, Glenn has a limited capacity. And again, it's a tragedy and it's sad what happened to Glenn Tipton. I mean, being diagnosed with Parkinson's, I think that is awful. I always wish people like him who have influenced our genre nothing but the best. And I'm sure he probably does have, he can't tour really that much, but I'm sure he might have something to do with the songwriting on the album. I'm going to guess. I don't know what his capacity is as far as his actual participation, but he is still there. But let's be real here, folks. I mean, Richie Faulkner's no slouch. The Elegant Weapons album he put out earlier this year was very, very good. Andy Sneap knows how Judas Priest should sound. He's one of the guitar players touring with the band, obviously. So he's going to probably have some input, I'm guessing. Obviously, you still have Rob Halford there. And again, I know KK Downing's not there. As much as I would love KK Downing to be back in that band, I understand why he's not in that band. And because he's not there does not mean Judas Priest is not going to put out a good record. So I don't like to really look into the politics of stuff. Is the album good? Are the songs good? Or are they not? And so far, what I have heard with this one song is that I think this album is going to be outstanding. I think it's going to be good. We will see when the time comes, when the album comes out, when they start putting out other singles. But so far, man, 9 out of 10 out of the gate, in my opinion, this is a great song. And a lot of bands there are bands out there that do stupid things like not putting out their best songs on, as singles. And typically it's kind of funny because when I say something about that, other fans react the same way. They get the album like, why wouldn't they put this out as a single? It happens a lot. There's a couple bands in particular recently that have made some very poor decisions on that. But this song by Priest, Panic Attack, I think it's great. I am really, really excited for this new Judas Priest album, and I cannot wait until we start hearing other songs, because then I will come on here and review them. But right now, I'm very optimistic. I think this album is going to be great. As far as the cover art goes, there's some people that think it's terrible. It's a shield with a bunch of colors behind it. Is it bad or is it great? To me, I'm sort of unaffected by it. I mean, it's definitely not something cool. Like Iron Maiden always has cool covers, right? There are bands that have really cool album covers out there. It's kind of more of a plain, it's a shield and got the Priest logo. It's neither bad nor really good. I mean, it's just kind of there. Some people are bashing it. It really has no effect on me. The music probably matters more to me than anything. But I do like the cover. I think the cover's the cover's kind of, I do like it, but it's not really something that, it's kind of like there. I like the color combination, but I do kind of like it from that perspective. But other than that, I don't have much to say about it. There's nothing awe-inspiring about it. There's nothing that I think is terrible. It's just a shield with a conglomeration of colors behind it, and that's really what it is. So there's a lot of people. I was going on social media, and I was watching people like flip out and argue over the album cover. And it's not an Iron Maiden cover. So or like where bands put like comic book art, like Death Dealer does, Cage does, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just there. But the most important thing is the music. And I am really, really excited for this record. So with that said, folks, thanks for watching. If you like what you see and hear on this podcast, don't forget to hit like the video, subscribe to it. I'm curious as to what you all think. Do you like this song, Panic Attack? And don't forget to go and check us out on Facebook. Link is in the show notes. So with that, thanks for watching. Stay metal.